And we are back to our regular programming in 2024 with the GQ build kicking things off. This thing has been sitting in my backyard just watching me.
She's looking at me, everyone. She's looking
Now it is finally time to pull this GQ into the shed and start cranking on this thing. Now, a little bit of a backstory. We picked this thing up for $3K off Marketplace and I had no plan for it. The only reason we got it is it was a good bloody deal. Now we have already twin locked it. We've done a rear quarter chop. We've also done some gull wing doors at the back. And in today's episode, we are going to start stripping everything down, get the motor out of it, put it on a stand, and really start cranking on this build. Proudly supported by Superior Engineering, Diesel Conversions Australia, and in part by...
All right, it is now the next weekend. We have the aircon cranking and I've pulled the GQ into the workshop because I figured we better get some actual full drive content onto the channel again. We've been working on the shed for ages. What we're gonna do today is I'm thinking that we're gonna pull that motor out of there. The reason is there is a few issues with the motor. We definitely have a clutch issue. It makes a weird noise when I push a clutch in, the noise goes away. So rather than drop the gearbox, which is a pain on a shed floor, I figured what we'd do is pull the motor. It's gonna be really good to have the motor on the stand to do the turbo setup. We do have to take off this manifold, put a new manifold on, turbo. We are also doing a custom intake plenum. So when we got the motor out, it'll be way easier to do all that. We can check the clutch. We can tidy up the engine bay a bit as well because you can see just down there, there's a heap of just random wires. Like this one here is missing all its sheath. So we can tidy all that up. There's a little bit of rusty stuff down there that I want to tidy up as well, but it's just going to be a lot easier with that motor out. I'm at such a crossroads with what to do with this car. I keep thinking like, let's just leave it the way it is and take it out to Glassy and just enjoy it. I'm going to get the motor out anyway. I want to tidy up the engine bay. I think after that it's going to snowball and we're going to end up doing a full build on this thing, which I didn't really plan on doing, but plans change. So I am kind of doing things backwards because we have serviced the motor, done new injectors, valve clearances, we got a secondhand radiator in, we flushed all the coolant and whatnot. I just wanted to make sure that the motor was running cool because if you guys remember, when I did buy this car, it was running quite hot and I had to pull the thermostat out of it. Now we've got it running nice and cool. I do think that there is possibly a bearing noise in the bottom end. So we might be able to check that out on the stand as well. I definitely still want to keep it budget, but I just want to really tidy it up. It's such a clean and cool old car. I love GQs, they're my favorite shape of car. So if we can get this thing tidied up, we can still take it glassy, still have fun, and still do everything that I was planning to do with it, but it's just going to be a lot better of a car. First things first, we've got to get the bonnet off so we can get the crane in there, and it's just a lot easier to work without the bonnet on. And the other thing is we're going to stay super organized. We've got a parts container for every single little part that we take out. I'm going to label them, and that way when we go to install everything back, we're not going to be looking for all the bolts.
Now, half the reason these motors are so popular is because they're very simple. There's only a couple of fuel hoses. There's like 5 wires that run to the motor itself. And then we've got the radiator, the rad hoses, some power steering lines, and the motor is just about out. Typically, I would be going around with a marker and marking all the electrical connectors where they go, but it's super simple to remember how this motor goes back together. So I'm not even going to bother doing that. I'm just going to rip into it and get this thing out of the engine bay.
Right, we're just about ready to start pulling this thing. I've got the starter motor disconnected, got the AC pump just pulled off and sitting to the side there. Everything else is pretty well disconnected, all the wires, fuel lines. Yeah, there's not too much on a TD42. Now the only thing really left is the engine mounts and the bell housing bolts that connect the motor to the gearbox. Bolts go right around the back of the motor there. There's 2 at the top that are quite hard to get to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these engine mounts off, then I'm going to lift the motor up and drop it back down, and it's kind of going to tilt the whole motor forward, and that is hopefully going to allow me to get a spanner in there and take those last 2 top bolts off. I'm just going to use a strap and fold it a few times over. It says it's rated to 680 kilos, so it should be enough, and I imagine that there's a safety factor involved in that. The other option is I could unbolt one of the seat belts from the very back and use that, but I'll see how this one goes first, and if it feels sketchy, we'll get the seat belt out.
Diesel, guess what? Adventure Corp give away a full drive every single month. And this month, they're giving away an FJ45. Can you believe it?
I can't either. There's no way I'd be able to give away this thing. It's just too damn nice. But one of you guys can win it. All you got to do is go down into the description below and enter. You can do that for as little as $5, and you could be driving away in this awesome giveaway. By doing this, you're also helping me create more content, so it'll be much appreciated, and hopefully one of you guys wins that car.
Right, everything is undone. I'm ready to pull this motor out. It's going to be really heavy. I can already tell there's a lot of weight in this motor, so hopefully we don't drop it, and hopefully everything goes to plan. I did swap out the main orange strap for the seat belt too, just because this orange strap here, it actually had a little tear in it, so I didn't really trust it. So get rid of that one. I've got a backup one on just in case this seat belt breaks. Yeah, we're about to pull a TD42 out of the GQ. Let's freaking do it. I'm just gonna let the air out of the tires just so we can get a little bit more extra lift on that crane.
Now, being a full drive, this thing naturally sits up higher at the front. So in order to pull the motor out, we've got to lift it quite high. That's why knocking the air out of the tires is a good idea. I've also only got a cheap engine crane. I do have to fully extend it out to that 250 kilogram mark. Obviously this motor is heavier than 250 kilos, so it's a little bit sketchy. Don't recommend doing this at home, but it's the only way that I can get this motor up and over the rad support. Right, that is the donk out of the car. That is such a good feeling. Really wasn't as bad as I even thought it was going to be. It's probably taken me 4 hours, and I was filming and stopping all the time, so not too bad at all. I am pretty excited to get this onto the stand and start stripping it down and tidying it up. It is my favorite thing to do with cars, is make the motor look really good and put it back into a super tidy engine bay. So I'm very excited to do that. I certainly am going to have to start ordering some parts for not only the motor, but also the car itself. We've got to get some paint, and yeah, this thing's definitely going to snowball. I wanted to do a budget build, but I think we're doing a full build. Literally, as I was talking then, I was like, yeah, we're 100% doing that. We're doing a full build, that's for sure.
Right, it is now the next weekend, and I am back in the shed. So what we're actually going to do today is we are going to get the TD42 on the engine stand. We're going to start cleaning everything up and getting it ready for paint and a little bit of a rebuild. I've ordered some parts over there, and I think that while the engine's out, we may as well go ahead and do the bottom end bearing, so everything on the crank. I'm hoping that we can do that with the crank still in there. I'm still waiting on parts for that, so that won't happen in today's video. But what I really want to do is start stripping out this engine bay. Now, to get this on the stand, we do need to rip the clutch off, which I've already done, because I wanted to know if I needed to order a new clutch, and I think I will go ahead and do it. You can see it is kind of chewed out in a few different spots, as well as the heat marks in this flywheel here. So Manny from Desta Automotive is trying to get me a clutch at the moment, so we need to rip this flywheel off anyway. It's going to have to go and get machined. This little adapter plate is also going to have to come off. Then we can get our engine stand bolted to the back of the motor and hopefully lift it up onto my engine stand. Now, we've also gone ahead and ordered a heap of parts. They're slowly coming in. It is Christmas time at the moment, so it's a little bit harder to get parts. I got the big end bearings, but I don't have the main bearings. I've got a few fittings to do the turbo drain and stuff like that. Got gaskets, engine mounts, because I did find that this engine mount here was completely destroyed. So I've ordered some new mounts. We've got our turbo manifold, our intake manifold that needs to be welded onto the intake. We are still figuring out what turbo we're going to need, and also we are thinking about getting a pump now as well. Originally was going to leave it the way it is and just slap a small turbo on it and run small boost, but I think now we may as well put a bigger pump and a bigger turbo.
Thank God.
So we're trying to figure out the best way to do that. Manny from Desta is trying to organize all of that in the background. But anyway, I want to get this big dog onto the engine stand, and once it's up there, I can pack the crane away for a bit and get it over into the corner because we're running out of room here. Right, now that is the big dog on the engine stand. A little bit sketchy, but we managed to get there. Now, I always chock the front of the motor with a bit of wood, or in this case, I found a bit of very thick steel. So that is nice and chocked up, and what that does is stops the motor bouncing, putting stress on the engine stand. Also, if you are pulling a TD42 at home, try get one of these stands with the U-shaped bottom and not the T-shaped bottom, because the T-shaped ones tend to fail with TDs on them. Now, I'm not going to be touching the engine in this episode. We're going to wait for the next episode when all my parts come in, then we can start tearing this thing down and start painting it. What we are going to do though is start ripping into the engine bay of the GQ. Now, there is quite a lot of stuff to do in here. We've still got the aircon connected. Ideally, I'd like to push that outside and disconnect the aircon. It is going to gas out. It's not the right thing to do, I know, but it's the only way I can do it at the moment. So we'll get the aircon out of here. I want to start stripping out all the stuff that we are going to be changing or not needing. So the vacuum system, we obviously need that, but we are going to be changing it so we don't have the ugly canister and all the stuff up on the firewall. The overflow bottle is destroyed anyway, so we'll get rid of that. The old air intake, the window washer bottle, all this mess here, we'll try and sort of get rid of. Then we can get pretty creative with the engine bay. We can paint it whatever color we want. We can rewire everything, make it all look super nice.
Now, I'm really keen to challenge myself with this engine bay. I want the motor to look like it's just sitting in there with nothing else really around it. This means that we have to relocate the vacuum canister, the fuel filter, the way that the fuel and vacuum enters the motor. We've got to get rid of at least 80% of the wiring. I don't want to see many wires in this engine bay at all. Might even order a nicer radiator just to sit up the front and do a thermo fan setup rather than have the clutch fan. I want this to look really, really nice in here.
That's just about everything unbolted from the engine bay except for the AC. I'm actually going to rip these fenders off and take the grill off as well, because I will be painting the inside of these fenders. And also, I want to relocate all of this wiring, and I'm kind of contemplating about getting rid of this battery box. We can fit a battery up in the back of the car, and that way it'll make a lot cleaner engine bay. First step anyway is get these fenders off, get the grill off, have a look if we can relocate the wiring. Might not do that today, but at least we'll get this clean. Now make sure you mark these left and right so you know which way they go back on. I'm just joking, it's pretty obvious. Right, so that is most of the stuff out of the way. Still got the aircon, still got this little intake thing that just goes to the fender, so we'll get rid of that soon. The main issue with an engine bay has always been the wiring. It just looks like crap, especially this wiring. It's all kind of like exposed and chewed through. You can see we've got cable showing everywhere. So what I'm gonna do, and I don't know if it's gonna work, is relocate all of this stuff. Now, you can see that these had little grommet things in it and all these relays were screwed to that, and that is on the inside of this wall here. So I'm thinking that if I flip these around, I'll be able to mount those on the inside of the wheel arch there. There is plenty of room in here with that fender for them to all be mounted. You can see we've got a little access hole here. So what I might be able to do is relocate this box and all those relays and kind of tuck them up under this wheel arch here. Then we can test fit the guard and see if it works. Obviously, we're still gonna have some stuff going to the engine. We're gonna have like the fuel pump shut off and whatnot. So there will be a bit of wiring going through, but if we can tuck the majority of it up under here, it's gonna look a lot better. We're gonna get round to unplugging everything so it can fit through this little hole. We might even have to make that access port a little bit bigger, and then we can go ahead and try and start mounting everything up. Right, I'm doing something really crazy. Cutting this wiring harness, which is the body harness right here. That's going to allow me to tuck this right up under the guard. We are going to have to rewire this little section though. There's a lot of wires in that. So we're going to have to literally strip back and join every single one of them. Some big wires too. I'd say they're going to the alternator. Yeah. We'll rejoin all them on the other side. Right, now we have a massive spaghetti pile here. So what we're gonna do is start passing it through the fender, but I need to cut a hole big enough to fit this fuse box here, which roughly I wanna cut that one out, kind of like a square. Pull the fuse box through, you might be able to mount that up here somewhere. I need to check all my clearances, make sure that we've got enough room there. Then this big long harness, it needs to come back down and connect up to the one that we cut. So it'll just get zip tied up here. All these relay wiring, they'll all get mounted up here in the same spot, but just on the opposite side. And then everything that needs to go to the motor, which is just this here, I will hole saw another hole through here and it'll just pass straight through into the engine. We'll really clean it up. Is it worth it? Don't know. Hopefully it is. We shall find out. I'm going to start cutting stuff and ruining this car, and then hopefully it works, because if not, we're buggered. This is going to work so good. You can see I've got it all tucked down. The other stuff here is the locker wiring, by the way, so we will sort that out as well. But you can see the main harness goes into that hole. Now I've just sat the fender on just to see how much clearance we've got to play with, and you can see there's a fair bit along that wall where we can start mounting everything, and then the inner wheel arch will go on as well and protect all these wires. So this can now come off. Then that shows all the wiring. It comes through that little square section. So all I need to do now is pretty much just mount everything back up. So I'll mount, you know, the relay box somewhere like that or wherever I can get it, and then our other relays will go up there. I did break those clips off because they were just kind of crusty, so I'll use little nut and bolt on that. Let's start mounting everything up. I won't be joining any of this stuff today because my solder is actually dead, so I do need to go and get another one. So we'll just kind of mount everything up, get it looking pretty, push her out, give her a clean. Mint. Just about finished with the wiring tuck. Nothing down there, no fuse box anymore. It's all up under here. Obviously, I've still got to get some stuff to hold it up, but let me show you with the fender off. Right, whatever these things are, they're mounted up here. I think they're all relays and stuff. This thing I did have to cut the bracket off, and I have just got it all mounted on some cheap hardware. I will be swapping out all the nuts and bolts and tightening everything up after we are painted, but then the harness will actually get tucked up like this. These two lengths of wires, whoops, there goes my torch. These two lengths of wires here, they'll go through this hole and out this side to the motor, so that will run the motor. Our fuse box is tucked away under here, as well as whatever that thing is. I don't know what half this stuff is, but everything is tucked away. The fender fits really, really nice. And then all I've got to do is just get some zip tie stuff, mount everything up, connect this up here as well, and then we'll have a nice tidy little section in there to work with. So got the Patrol ready to be pulled out and degreased. This thing is bloody filthy, so I'm keen to get this done. I'm going to pull it out. Everything is taped up that needs to be taped up, mainly the fuel lines, but the rest of the power steering and all that, I've done that as well. So it is ready to rumble. Probably soak this thing for a good, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, then come through with the pressure cleaner. I do have a turbo on my pressure cleaner, not an actual turbo, but a turbo head that kind of spins around. So I'll hit it with that as well. We can degrease inside of the bell housing of the gearbox, which is filthy. And yeah, this is going to be really nice because the thing has been really bad to work on. I did just wash my hands, but it's all up my arm and whatnot. So far all we've done is just tear stuff apart. Hopefully soon we can start putting everything back together, and that's the exciting part. But anyway, let's get this out and get it clean.
We've made some pretty good progress in this episode, and the more I rip into this, the more excited I get about the build. We've obviously got a lot of work ahead of us, but I cannot wait to see this thing done. Now, in the next couple of episodes, we've still got to strip the engine bay a little bit more. We'll get rid of the clutch and brake masters and that clutch line running across. We'll get rid of that battery tray, start tidying up the engine bay. Not sure if I want to weld up all the holes in the engine bay or not. Definitely leave a comment if you think I should. If you've enjoyed this sort of content today, please drop a like. Helps me a lot on the channel. And if you're not subscribed, please consider doing so you can stay up to date with this build. She's all washed now and ready to be pushed into the shed for next week's episode. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you then.
Man, I love TD42s. They're gonna be the best engine in Nissan's fleet. I love them, especially when they have a big turbo slap to them. Big diesel noises.